Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Friday, February 17th, 2023, and this is episode 670 of Living Free in Tennessee. And today is a Homestead Happenings update day. We did not stream live last year. We did not record one last Friday because I headed out to Special Operations Equipment just to see what was in the storage container there for the Self-Reliance Festival. And then I recorded a podcast with John Willis. I'm not sure when it'll be produced, but I'll totally share that out for everybody when we get it done. We just sat down and had an interesting talk about employees and mindset and all sorts of different things. So that was a fun time. And I also got my car fixed because it wasn't like mechanically not able to work, but it needed some things done. And while I was there, we noticed the brake pads needed replacing. So I had a great guy meet me out there who was willing to just fix my car all at once. It took him a few hours. And I've been having trouble finding local sources for car repairs. So I got that done and then drove back home. And now I can tow, because my car is upgraded, right? It's like all fixed. I can tow the Mitsubishi Mighty Backs out to get the head gasket replaced. That's the next thing. So then I'll have two vehicles. Two is one is none. But today is a Homestead Happenings Day. We're sort of covering 2 weeks since we didn't go live last week. And then it'll be followed by Q&A. If you have questions, put them in all caps. If you are listening to this on the audio podcast, send me an email, Nicole@livingfreeintensity.com, and then put, LFTN question or Q&A in the subject line. Put your question there, and I'll try to work it into a show in the future. I haven't been getting a lot of emails lately. We were getting a good cycle of them, but I also haven't been producing Q&A shows because we've only had 2 or 3 questions. So I'll probably edit a whole bunch together. I did realize that I didn't handle a question earlier this week that I said I would. So I will handle that on today's show. And it's about using cardboard as compost or as setting up an area for planting. So I was like, hey, I'll answer this today. And then I did the My 3 Things episode on Monday, got really focused in on SWAT, like hyper focused on the SWAT situation. And then there it went. So today we're going to talk about transition time on the homestead. We are in the transition weather time in Tennessee, which is something that's interesting. And you have to make decisions based on that. The climate here is different than your climate if you're not in Tennessee. And we all, when we're running homesteads, growing food or growing plants of any kind outside, have to get to know our local climates to have a better idea of when and what and how to do things. And that's a very specific decision-making matrix. Like the way I grew vegetables in Oregon is very different than how I grow them in Tennessee. We're going to talk about solar and community, and we're going to talk about animal losses, eggs, and more. Stay tuned for all of that today. I will shoot out a link to the Holler Neighbors to see whoever wants to join this live stream afterwards, and we can have questions as well. Before we do that, though, I do want to talk about our featured event, which is the Self-Reliance Festival. That's right. Self-Reliance Festival is coming in just 5 weeks, and we've got some really cool presenters. I'm just saying. Tickets are $75 at early bird pricing through February 22nd, which is coming up fast. And the purpose of the Self-Reliance Festival is to address some of our fears about collapse, tap into that energy, convert it into a non-fear-based decision-making pattern to make your lives better based on whatever you decide to do. And it's to connect people. And every time I ask people who've been at Self-Reliance Festival what was the most they got out of it, like they went there to see Bear Independent or Paul Wheaton or CJ Kilmer or John Willis, or Nicole Sauce, or Ed Hubble, or Angela and Garen from Grumpy Acres, or Tag from Life Done Free, or Porterhouse, or Mike Shelby, or Dana McClendon, or Joel Riles, or Chuck Peoples, or there's tons of great speakers here. I'm just kind of scrolling through them on the video. They went to meet those people and got a lot out of their presentations, but I'm like, so what would you tell somebody coming to Self-Reliance Festival is a reason to go? And they're like, connections. It's the connections. The people I met there got me jump-started on whatever I was worried about or over a roadblock. And now I'm producing well. And I have people near me who I know, who I can work with as I build a better life, as I make myself more resilient to whatever happens, whether it be a tornado, civil unrest, economic collapse, transition to a CBDC. We've got a crypto demo happening, right? That's what they say is the thing they get out of it. And I think that is the hardest thing to explain to people. But if you have not grabbed your ticket, head on over to selfreliancefestival.com, grab your tickets before the price goes up. They are $75 through midnight Central Time, February 22nd. Also, I wanted to thank today's show sponsor, and that is Paul Wheaton of Permies.com. Are you getting ready to make your garden? Are you putting in your garden? Have you already planted your garden? Well, you know what? Paul Wheaton has some pretty cool stuff, and it's the Garden Master Course. The trailer link is in the show notes, and I will totally cut and paste it into the comments here. But if you want really deep into gardening for market, community, or your own homestead, the Garden Master Course is basically a different take on the Master Garden course, right? So you can become a master gardener, and if you become the master gardener, you're learning how to use chemical ag on stuff, right? That's not what we want to do. We want to set up systems that feed each other and fertility that cycles through. So he's got a really cool course over at Permies.com called the Garden Master Course. And if you were listening to my podcast a few months ago, they did a Kickstarter for that. And it's a phenomenal course. It has been released now, so you can watch it. I'm just starting to watch it myself because you know what I know? I grow food really well. You know what I also know? I can grow food better if I learn. So that's 35 hours of quality instruction, better than organic practices, with a great instructor. Check it out at Permies.com. There is also a link in the show notes. It's called the Garden Master Course. Garden Master Course. Do that in your key search or just hit the links in the show notes. It'll take you straight to the course. It's a fantastic addition to your learning library, especially if you're like, hey man, we just got another wave of snow and guess what? I'm not going to be outside in the garden today. Well, it's a good day to learn when that happens, right? It's a great day to learn. Finally, I mean, we've got a lot going on. So Amy Dingman and I are going to start doing Spicy Sisters again. I don't know when. We'll keep you posted. This Sunday, though, at I believe it's 3 p.m. Central, but it might be 4 p.m. Central. We are doing a live radio show. Toolman Tim and I are doing a live radio show on the YouTube channel, his and mine. And we'll be featuring other content creators. We'll be playing their stuff and emceeing in between. We decided to just give it a whirl and see if people will be interested in that. So that's this Sunday. You can play it while you're working on projects, guys. And that'll be over at the Living Free in Tennessee YouTube or at the workshop YouTube if you want to check those out. With that, it's time for our first segment of today's show, and that is Forage. This is where we talk about what we are finding on the land. And every time I ask Tactile, I'm like, hey, man, what are you finding on the land? He's like, grass. Well, why is that forage? Because we have sheep. You know what sheep eat? Grass. So I think there's a lot of excitement about the grass that is growing on our land. And that's because we didn't have grass when we got the sheep, and we didn't have very much. So they were like cruising through the pasture last time, starting in June, because we didn't have rain, and rain is required for grass unless we're going to run sprinklers everywhere, which is not a super feasible approach on 16 acres that we're running them on. So the grass thing and being sad about the grass has been, I think, a big thing in his psyche, because he had to work probably 4 times as hard to get these sheep set up because of the lack of rain situation. And, that's something that I think it's funny, because every time I talk to him about forage, he's like, there's grass and mullein. And the thing about grass and mullein in Tennessee, grass comes back really fast here because we tend to turn the corner of winter faster than other parts of the country to our north or higher elevations. And mullein just doesn't really, like, mullein's a 2-year plant. It goes from, seed to sprout to plant to blooming over a 2-year cycle to seed again. And it's super resistant to cold. So you can have snow covering the thing and dig down in the snow, and there's mullein leaves. You harvest the leaves, you eat the leaves. Or you make them into tea for like cold prevention or to help with breathing conditions, all sorts of cool stuff. You know, one time I was teaching a class with Brett about processing pigs, and I had the sniffles really bad. And I'm like, great, I don't want a booger all over the pig, right? So I reached out to AutoFab where we were doing this course, and I said, do you have any mullein there? Because I didn't have any mullein. I have mullein everywhere because I have like fairy spread seeds of mullein. Every time I find a stalk, it's like you just sort of find some of the worst places for stuff to grow around your land, and you just get seeds out there and hope that they germinate. And sometimes some of them do. And then you don't mow the plant once it comes up. Anyway, I was like, hey, do you have mullein? He's like, what's mullein? And I was like, this is mullein. I sent him a picture. He's like, I got this everywhere. So I went to his place, grabbed mullein leaves, made mullein tea, and did not have the sniffles while I was teaching that class. So I don't know if it was the mullein or if I was just super lucky, but I have decided it's the mullein. And in fact, when I have a cold coming on, I'm always like, hey, I need mullein. And we go out and pick mullein. I also keep some dried mullein inside, but I would prefer the fresh leaf over the one that's dried in my pantry. I did learn this year, though, that it's a really good idea to have dried stuff, even if you don't usually need it. Because like I ended up needing dried comfrey, and I was like, crap, I don't have any. And then there were like the 5 leaves. So I've been doing that. So comfrey is starting to come back, and the leaves are about 2 inches tall right now on some of our plants out there. I don't know if the mullein, or not the mullein, the comfrey that we planted rootstock in the food forest is up yet. I haven't seen signs that it's coming up, and it may take a little longer to throw its leaves up. But my established plants are coming back right now, and that's good because I've been making the comfrey mouthwash for my dental situation. I had my final surgery 2 days ago. Hopefully there's nothing else for years to come. We will see. You know, teeth are teeth, and teeth do what teeth do. People keep asking me like, why did all your teeth go bad at once? It wasn't that all my teeth went bad at once. It's that 2 of my teeth were cracked, and they were cracked because they were filled when I was a teenager, and the fillings went very deep, and they were like the old metal fillings. And apparently, especially if you grind your teeth some, that can cause pressure, and over time the teeth can crack, and the teeth did crack. And so the original plan was to prepare them for crowns to so that bacteria didn't get in there. Well, bacteria had already gotten in there, and the nerves were already well on their way to dying. And we didn't really know that until they were prepared for crowns. Although when I then talked to the dentist afterwards, she's like, based on how deep those were, if it was my mouth, I would have gone ahead and gotten root canals anyway. But, we didn't want to spend all your money on that. And I was like, man, I probably would have done it all at once. So once I had the work done, there was just like bad nerve pain, and it's just taken way longer than it should to schedule the work to get the root canals done, but they are done now. And so people keep asking me, are you in pain? And I'm like, hell yeah, I'm in pain. I just had somebody drilling into my like teeth bone stuff. But the kind of pain after a root canal that you have is nothing. It is nothing like the pain you have before. So to me, it's a good pain. It's like a little bit less every day as I heal. Yesterday, it ramped up a bit because it was more inflamed, but it's done. And I decided, since comfrey like helps things heal and it helps bones heal, to do the comfrey mouthwash. I have been taking it internally. That is a controversial choice that I have made. It's very hard to find information on dosing because there's a study out there that says it will cause my liver to fail and I will get cancer. And I looked at the study and decided that that was not realistic for the amount that I am putting in my body. And I made my own decision. Information. This is not a recommendation for you, but it is a recommendation to look at the why when people tell you not to do stuff, or when they tell you to do stuff. Because sometimes they'll be like, this is perfectly safe. And then you look at the research and you're like, not sure that's perfectly safe. Like, artificial sweeteners are perfectly safe, right? Saccharin, all of that, not perfectly safe. Look at their impact on your blood sugar levels. Ask yourself why you're not just having sugar at that point, and look at their long-term impacts from a cancer standpoint. It's very interesting that those are safe, but comfrey is not safe. And the studies are similar. in different ways. So it's just important to look at these things, guys. It's important to be skeptical. And I'll talk about skepticism later when we get into the livestock part of today, because that's why I'm skeptical about the egg thing. And it's because I'm skeptical about everything I hear until I can find some way to dig down. And guys, as you're asking questions, if you want me to answer them, put them in all caps. I will do the show on the live stream. Wild garlic is up, and stinging nettle is probably up too. And I even went on a hike in the woods, but I did not go to my favorite nettle patch, so I don't know. But it's probably up. It's usually this time of year I start collecting stinging nettle and drying it for teas in the winter. Stinging nettle is a great tea if you are a woman of my age who might be thinking about going through certain transitions that women of my age go through. We'll just leave it at that. You can dig into that as well and look at all of the things. So next segment is livestock. This is where we talk about the critters, all the heartbeats we are maintaining on the homestead. And Tactical, if you need the link for later, it's in Telegram. Anyway, the baby rabbits died. I was so excited last time on here. We had baby rabbits. They lived a week. That night, it got cold. And I didn't take them inside. I didn't add any heat. I looked at the nest. It looked reasonably well insulated. And I thought, you know what I want is resilient animals. And so me bringing these rabbits in does not help them be resilient. And sure enough, I get up next morning, everybody's dead. So that was kind of sad. Since then, Mom had a week to recover, and then we rebred her. If her next batch dies, I'm going to be of the opinion she's not a good mother, because the other rabbits are alive, right? I'm going to be of the opinion she's not a good mother, and we will probably transition that breeding stock. And we did breed her with the white rabbit, so if she doesn't get pregnant, I will know the white rabbit's shooting blanks and he's out. So kind of using that as a test. The other baby rabbits are fine. They're actually, it's time for them to go into a tractor and eat grass and all of those things and get grown into meat rabbits. One of them's female. I might keep her as a breeder if we decide to cycle this other one. We'll see. I actually probably will bring in another female from offsite. I was going to talk to John Willis about one of his, because he uses the stun method on his rabbits, which is good. It means they're not used to being babied, and we're not going to baby. So when I breed the rabbits, I put it on the calendar when they're supposed to give birth by the color of the rabbit. Some people will have same color rabbits and like tatters, so they have a number. But I just like to know when we're expecting for each rabbit, so that we can pay attention to, what's born, if it's born, make sure there's a nesting box in there, all that good stuff. And right now I'm doing that on a calendar, just like, the normal monthly calendar you get for free from your bank in December, or you might buy one because you want one with a specific look. Like, I put it there rather than in my digital calendar, because it's by the coffee maker. I'll look at it every morning. And when I look at it every morning, it's more likely I'll be like, oh, this week I see that baby rabbits are due, so we better put the nesting box in. And then we put the nesting box in and some straw in there, and that helps with the success of the rabbits. And that also helps me know when it's time to breed the rabbits again. I do that with the sheep when they've been exposed, and when we have had ducks setting eggs, I do that too, and I count out, this is the window for when things are born. It's just nice to know. It's nice to know. And, like, it was pretty frustrating this year with the sheep when I screwed up the whole cycle, not knowing when the birth was going to happen, just knowing, like, there's an udder at some point, babies are coming out, don't know when. And so it was like every day you're looking at it, you're like, is it time? Is it time? Is it time? And it was not time. Finally, it was time. And the day it was time, I was like, I think she's in labor. And then Tactical's like, hey, there's a baby on the ground. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go outside. You're not supposed to give birth after dark, but here you are giving birth after dark. Sheep don't read books, just for the record. Sheep don't read books. With the green grass coming back, the sheep are moving from a drier, less rich food, because they've been eating hay that we feed them, and they have been eating whatever they forage, which is, grass that's half dead or all dead, and brush and all of that, dry leaves that they find. And with the grass coming back, that means their diet's getting richer. And it's time for me to pay attention to indigestion issues, make sure that the baking soda is topped off. They have free access to baking soda and mineral. I'm heading to Georgia hoping to get some fresh mineral. I need a picture of a different mineral bag than the one Tactical sent me because that was the wrong bag. And I'm hoping to come back with that. If I don't come back with that, we will be moving them to a different mineral mix. It just sort of depends on what we put together there. But there's somebody in Georgia who makes pretty good mineral mix that they've been on, and we've had vigorous sheep, so I'd really like to keep them on that. But I was looking outside, and the little red wagon we made as sort of the mineral cart appears to be in the sell it pile, and I'm wondering if I need to jump in and make my little mineral cart. And I don't know, Tactical can weigh in on that afterwards when we pull them on for the Q&A section. I have animals for sale. I have a set of pigs that are a great breeding pair and haven't posted them on sale. I've just said it on the podcast. And I have a St. Croix male, and both of those I've said on the podcast and then not actually posted online for sale. So I am getting that done this weekend because they really should go on somewhere. Or with the lamb, if he doesn't sell, I'm going to process him before he gets too old. So it just sort of depends. He's just really good breeding stock if you are raising St. Croix. And so I'm hoping somebody will grab him, not because I'm super emotionally attached to him, because I'm not really, he's a nice little dude, but I'm not super emotionally attached to him. It's just that A, I don't need the meat at this hot minute, and B, if he can keep his genetics going in our region, then that just makes everything more diverse. And when things are more diverse, we all have more success with our animals. So I will get those up. Duck eggs are back. We had no eggs for a really long time. And then we had like one egg every couple days. And the chicken, actually, she started laying first, but then she's super old. She's like 5 or 6 years old. So, there aren't very many eggs left in that chicken, but she's going to die of old age. She's the last one from the I'm Stopping Chickens flock. I am going to get breast chickens in an enclosed area, so they will come back. But I really wanted no more chickens free ranging and ripping up all my stuff. And the ducks don't. They eat the comfrey, but they don't do anywhere near the damage that the chickens have done over the years. So we're getting 3 eggs a day, except for today. We got 4. And what that tells me is that my relatively 4-year-old old khaki Campbells are laying. And the Muscovies probably are not. So the Muscovy eggs look a little different than the khaki Campbell eggs. And I haven't seen any Muscovy looking eggs. But I'm very hopeful that the Muscovies will start laying and we can actually hatch out some eggs. I am getting rid of the, whatever that thing's called that does eggs, incubator. Getting rid of the incubator we have here and giving it to another local homesteader who really wants to do a whole bunch of chickens. Just because I had a hard time programming it and I didn't have great success with it. And I think she will have better success because she pays attention more than I do. And I may borrow somebody's incubator to do some eggs if the ducks won't set them. But my preference is to have the ducks set them and take care of the babies and all of that. And that's part of why we have them at Muscovies, right? We want them to reproduce. And if they reproduce, that's great. In fact, I need to clip those buggers' wings, or else they're going to fly away. So the Muscovies are not laying yet. When they start laying, we'll start paying attention to, okay, it's time to get some eggs incubated either under mom or in an incubator. And then I have baby chicks on the way, meat birds. And I used to do the Cornish cross or the Cornish roaster, which are the easiest and most successful and most price efficient bird basically to do. But I don't like chicken very much anymore. And that chicken, they grow a lot of breast meat, and I like dark meat. And so I've gotten, I think it's a ginger roaster or something. It's a different breed of bird. It takes longer to grow out. We've got 50 of these on the way, some for for the Eversoles to process. 50 is about the maximum I like to do at the time here with what we have set up. It's manageable. 40 is what we usually do. So I just added 10 birds. And we do our annual chicken processing class. So our annual chicken processing class will be in mid-June, and it's $95. It includes lunch. You get my guide to processing poultry, which we will not give to you at the beginning of class because we don't want you using it in class, getting chicken guts all over it, and then going home with a disgusting book. So we'll hand you that booklet when you leave. There are access to some during the class if you want to refer to them that can get yucky because I'll end up tossing those, but you shouldn't need, while we're teaching the class, you should not need access to the guide. The guide is a step-by-step walk through processing poultry. and it has pictures, and it's just the way I do it. But that class will be in mid-June. I will have it out soon. I'm going to get through the end of early bird pricing on Self-Reliance Festival. And yes, I saw the digital ticket question that afterwards. I wanted to get through early bird before I started pitching another event, because what happens is I'm going to focus on, Carrie's event one episode, and I focus on Joel Riles' event another, and it's Self-Reliance Festival. And then there's my spring workshop. And it gets a little confusing, I think, if we just talk about all of these events. Even though I have a calendar on the website that makes it easy, you can go to freesetting.com, the calendar where you can start seeing how events lay out. And there's also freerange.events. That's another place you can go to put context into what your opportunities are. But I find on the audio podcast in particular, if I'm like, go to this event, go to that event, go to this third event, and there's all these great events to go to, and some will make sense for different ones of you. It gets confusing. And when you're confused about which event to go to, you don't go to any of them. And I want you to choose your one event this year and go to it. I don't care if it's one that I promote or one from your community that's nearby, but get out and meet the people. Get out and make those in-person relationships. And you can do that at my processing workshop. You can do that at a local meetup that's, like the Dixon Homesteaders Alliance. They're having monthly meetups. Go there if you're near them. Carrie has his swap meet coming up. Go to that, right? So there's lots of places you can go. Start going. Even if you think I'm an introvert and I don't like people, I don't care. I'm a weird neurodivergent introvert too. And I go out and I meet people and we get along and I make good relationships. And because of those relationships, I'm a much stronger person and I can help other people be stronger people. And that's literally what we need to do to endure any of the transitions that could come to our culture, that could happen to our stock market or our economy, that just happens in life. You got to have people. You have to have community. Even if you think you want to be alone, what'll happen is you'll find the other introvert in the room who's like, I don't like people either. And you're like, we don't like people. And then you get, you start moving forward. But what I've really found is as I get to know more and diverse people, I appreciate a lot of the different personality types and I understand what it is. And it helps me actually make myself stronger, better, and a better community member by getting to know a variety of personality types, learning how to interact with them, getting to know them really who they really are, and then realizing we're not that different. We just think we're different. Don't hide behind your introvert label. It's just going to hurt you. It's just going to hurt you. Anyway, baby chicks are on the way. And then I found a location for breast babies. I'm going to get a mixed colors of breasts from this guy coming out of Mississippi. And I kind of thought about seeing if I could drive down and pick them up, but I think I'm just going to ship them up, getting 25 because 25 ship well. May not need to keep 25. So if some of y'all want some breast chickens, let me know. It's a straight run, so I'll get boys and girls. And, if you have boys and girls make more. And that's the purpose of getting the breast chickens. I'm setting up a system where I'm hoping they will reproduce. I'm getting to know other people with breast chickens from other sources so we can trade roosters and keep, develop some nice, strong genetics. That's my plan. Next up is Harvest Meals. This is where we talk about what we're cooking from the homestead. So I gave you my whole dental story earlier on. I'm not chewing very well. So steak has been pretty much off the list. So what has happened is I've been really tempted to just order takeout and understand that me being tempted to order takeout's kind of a big deal because while there is currently a Mexican restaurant 5 minutes from my house at the marina on the dock on the water that makes some pretty good food, anything else I get requires a minimum of a 40-minute drive. I guess I could go to Smithville for 25 to 30 minutes. We're looking at a 45-minute drive each way. You're not Uber Eatsing that. So when I say I've been tempted by takeout, what that really means is if I'm in town anyway, I might take something home. I might, I met somebody for dinner on Sunday and it was Indian food because Indian food does not require chewing. Well, not the Indian food I got. I didn't get like the tandoori chicken or anything. Does not require chewing. I just everything I cook does better chewed. And I wasn't chewing. So it was like, how much bone broth can a woman drink? And then what you start getting tempted to have is like things that dissolve in your mouth, like ramen and cake and ice cream. And I was like totally spinning over all of that. And I'm going to sneeze. I'm sorry, guys. Wow. And Tactical suggested that puree what I have here. And I had holler stew with chunks of meat I needed to chew, because holler stew is sort of like different things that are left over put into a pot with some spices. It's delicious. And so I was having baby food. Basically, I was making baby food. And it looked like baby poop color-wise, but it tasted delicious. And I made those, and that was great, but I was kind of getting sick of it. So I was tempted by the Eshes stopped by last weekend to look at some projects we're working on here. They were on their way home from somewhere, and they came up with this like pound of their homemade breakfast sausage from their pigs. That fed me for 3 days. That was a huge, they don't even know it probably. That was like a really big boost for me because I was having trouble eating. And it's not bad that I've been losing weight over this, because I could stand to lose 20 more pounds. But it's not exactly the best kind of weight loss. That's the kind of weight loss you lose and then you gain back more. And I couldn't stomach trying to chew anything. And that was great. And then I've just been doing a lot of blended food. So I don't have a great recipe to share with you this week, but I will say this. If you know somebody's in tooth pain, bring them ground meat, man. Like bring them some, because we're going to be tempted to eat all the comfort foods. Next segment is Grow. This is where we talk about what's growing in the garden. Yes, Grow is back. Grow is back. Remember how I was like, winter is coming? Yeah, winter is not coming anymore. Spring is coming, and that's all about Grow. So we got, last summer, we had our first like homestead boot camp person come out. And one of the things she wanted to learn how to do was to put in a garden bed. So I taught her the lasagna mulching process by lasagna mulching a big bed that had garlic in it, and the garlic had been harvested, so there was nothing in it. And so she worked hard, and we did like poop and all sorts of other stuff. It was a totally glamorous adventure that we had there. And then I just ignored it until now. It's early spring, time to plant some early spring stuff, and I peeled back the wood chips that were on top. And some of the cardboard had not broken down because I had a cardboard layer. And the cardboard that didn't break down were the Walmart boxes that had a lot of blue paint on them. So just for context, if you're going to do cardboard, because I don't use cardboard a lot in the garden, but I was like, I know it works, so we'll put this down. And what I had was a bunch of boxes, and some of them were Walmart boxes. So peeled them back. I actually just pulled them out completely because I wanted access to the soil underneath. And peeled back the bed, and I planted peas, carrots, radishes, and broccoli direct sow. I did not do lettuce in that area. I may go back with some lettuce seed. And I thought, it's seed roulette season. So I'll seed stuff, and then if it gets frozen, I'll reseed stuff. Today we had freezing rain and snow this morning, and I don't have row cover on this. I should put some landscape fabric over it. Didn't have any. I need to buy some. So I have it. And I didn't want to put plastic over it and don't get the benefit of the natural rain that's falling. So I'm going to go up there and see what, if anything germinated. I don't think anything germinated yet. It was a go, and stuff germinates slow at this time of year, but we'll see. Like it usually takes peas 7 days for me, like when I just plant them straight in the ground. So we'll see. If they are germinated, I'm actually putting plastic over them for the cold tonight, and then I will get off my butt this weekend when I'm in town, and I will buy my landscape fabric, and we will put the hoops up, and I will just get those protected a little bit, because that's how you stretch your spring, right? Is you cover them, they're a little bit protected, and they're less likely to die when you drop to 24 degrees. What the climate's doing right now in Tennessee is it is going from upper 60s, low 70s, and 40s at night to today. It's barely going to get to 40 degrees. It's going to go to 24 tonight. It kind of does this back and forth thing right now. At some point, we might get a 15-degree deep freeze. We could get more snow or ice still, but we're kind of on the tail end of any winter like activity. I just know that frosts are possible into April. And so I'll seed, I'll reseed. I'm direct sowing this year. I'm not doing transplant for the early spring stuff. Just seeing what happens. And if nothing happens, then I'm going to put peppers up there. And if something happens, I will have something out of the garden. This is a time of year I'm not trying hard to get the early spring vegetables off of the garden just because, well, part of it is my diet has changed a lot in the last few years. And so I'm not like dying for the lettuce right now. And usually I'm eating lettuce all summer. Lettuce requires chewing. I was not chewing this winter, so didn't grow lettuce. I actually will start lettuce to serve at my spring workshop in mid-March because it takes 6 weeks for me to get it. And to the extent I can feed people at my place stuff for my place, I'll do that. So that is in plans, but it's not there. I promised y'all I was going to start my seedlings last weekend. I did not, or 2 weekends ago. Still not started. The seedling area is all set up, ready to go. What I have not done is sat my butt down and put the seeds in the little trays. So I'm sure that will get done this weekend. And because it's an approximate thing, guys, like some people are very scientific about this day is the day I start the seedlings. There's a range of stuff that I can do, or a range of time where if I start the seedlings in that range of time, we're fine. And the ones that are the most long taking to go from seed to transplant are peppers, and we'll be fine. I have started peppers in May and still had plenty of peppers. They come later if I do that. So I'm not that worried about it. I am going to get I'm going to get the peppers started for sure this weekend. I'm not going to start the tomatoes until March. So that's the thing. And then I will start herbs this weekend, like dill. Some of those because they germinate pretty quickly. But like calendula, like all of those things I want to transplant. I'll probably grab, I'm looking out my window at the echinacea patch. I'll probably grab some of those echinacea seeds and start some echinacea plants and put those in the food forest. And I'm going to need, I would like 30 rosemary plants. So I may try to get some of those from seed and transplant them and see if they live. Who knows? I'm really good at killing rosemary as we have established, but I'll just keep trying until something lives. And when that one plant lives, that's the one you take cuttings off of and you spread it all around. And it's the one that adapts itself to your area. I was listening to Jack Spirko's show and he mentioned that if you put some of your own soil, even if you're using a potting mix in your seedlings in with the seedlings, those seeds, when they germinate, will symbiotically depend on your soil biology and do better than if you start them in not your soil without any of your soil inoculated and just put them straight out there. They assume none of that stuff is there as seedlings, and that can make the plant less vigorous. So I am also that's actually why I didn't get my seedlings done last weekend. Literally, that was my toolbox fallacy last weekend is I got to go outside and get a scoop of dirt and put it in with this other soil I'm using, and I didn't do it. I just didn't do it. And I was like, okay. I was letting the perfect be the enemy of the good, but I really want to do that. I will totally use the aspirin trick on the tomatoes this year too. Next segment is Holler Neighbors / community. This is where we talk about Holler Neighbors. That cell that was headed towards the holler last night missed y'all, I take it. Yeah. Where we are and how we're situated isn't super exposed to tornadic activity. We do get some winds here, but tornadoes have a tendency to go on the flatter, more open places, and I'm literally in a holler. So it is possible one could touch down here, but I think the big cells are even less likely to, but I don't know. Could. It's just they usually go up on the plains where it's what I call the plains, where it's flat. They usually go above us, below us, around us, and sometimes we get some wind. I had one time a fence post knocked over by wind my second year here. But other than that, it's usually like I look up on the ridge at the trees blowing around. I'm like, wow, it's really windy up there. And I'm down here and it's not very windy. So, when I first moved here, I dreamed of building my house on the ridge and having that beautiful view of the lake and the hills. And now I'm like, screw that. When the ice storms hit, those houses just get slammed. When the wind comes, those houses just get slammed and mine doesn't. So I'm going to stay here where I don't get slammed. That's just my plan. Anyway, Hollow Neighbors community. This is where we talk about the bigger community, the little community that we have here. It's been a great couple weeks of community. And Sean Mills went on the Freedom Cell networks and on my LFTN Telegram and started saying, hey, does anybody want these used solar panels? It works out to about 25 cents a kilowatt hour. And that's a pretty good price. And, you know, they're not going to be operating at 100%, but you'll know the percentage they're operating at. And it's a good deal. Shared by, if we get pallets, that's how we keep the cost down. He sold 7 pallets in a week to people in our community all over the state here and Alabama, where he lives. And yesterday, or a couple days ago, he's like, hey, man, so could I put a couple pallets down by your workshop? And I just wrote back, yes, knowing I wasn't going to have him put them down by the workshop because we're working on the workshop and it would be in our way. But I was like, he doesn't actually care about where he puts them, what his core thing is. He wants to put the panels here because he's got to pick them up at the factory and drop them somewhere because they were delivered. And then he's distributing them out between now and I think my spring workshop. I think he'll have a bunch at Self-Reliance Festival for resale at his booth. And he's having people who are going to Self-Reliance Festival pick up their panels there. So there's a whole lot of, and there's a delivery, like the Chattanooga Voluntarist Society, they got a bunch. So he's delivering some to them. Like there's a whole bunch of people. And I was like, yeah, because my property is a hub for this area. And if you want to do a shared buy thing from here, as long as you manage it and don't leave it sitting around here for a long time, that's totally fine. So he came yesterday and dropped off solar panels, and I had him put them in my carport so they're not just getting weathered on, although they can, I mean, they're solar panels. They can get weathered on. But I was like, you know, might as well. If it hails, they won't get destroyed, right? And then they can go where they need to go. But it was pretty cool. He and Tactical spent a while unloading one panel at a time because I don't have a forklift here or a skid steer with a forklift attachment, but that's totally on my wish list. He'd be stoked if I had one of those because then we could just move the pallets off his truck. And he ended up like, we sat down and went over my solar plan for the solar build at my spring workshop just to review all my choices, make sure we were building it to the goals that I have. He needed to know if I think I might expand that and because I need a different inverter if I do that. And I kind of explained to him like because he's helped me with my big picture energy plan here for years. And I explained like, this is where I see it going. I don't think like the roasting shack will never be off grid because it uses so much electricity. It's pulling all of 70 amps just to roast, right? Like the electrical guys who upgraded my transformer at the pole, they were astounded. They're like, you're actually pulling 70 amps from that building. I'm like, yeah, I know. Do you need a bigger transformer than that? Because that transformer is doing 3 houses, my roasting shack and 2 other houses. And they're like, no, this will work. And then, you know what? When I run my roaster, the lights in my house still dim. So I don't think it is big enough, but whatever. And that's not supposed to happen. They're on 2 different services, by the way. So that's not like one service, everything dims. No, it's like the house next door to you dims when you turn your oven on is the equivalent of what we're experiencing here. But I'm going to just go off on tangents today because I'm a tangent lady today. Anyway, so that was really cool. And we got the solar build plan, and I had a choice between these used panels that are all stacked up in my carport. I can get, like 29 of those, or maybe it's 19. Yeah, it's 19. Or I can buy 9 new ones with a higher rating per panel. And the cost of doing the different panels for me in my system is, because you have to upgrade different things in the whole system, it's about $400. So for $400, I have a much smaller footprint. It's easier to maintain. And I get brand new panels, which will last longer, although that's not a big deal. Dude, I'm like, we're just going to do the 9 panels because if it was my roof on my house it was going on, different decision would be made because I have a really big roof that's low to the ground. So like I can get to it and putting panels on your roof, if you have a tall roof, means it's hard to get to maintain, which is why tag says put your panels on the ground. It's because you might have to scrape snow off of them or clean them. And you're not going to do that if you have to do it 50 feet up in the air, right? You're going to pay somebody to do it. And then you're not going to do that because you're not going to want to prioritize the budget. He's totally right. In my house and with my land limitations, I do want them on the roof. And my roofs are not tall. I literally, without a ladder, can get on my roof if I need to on this one. Ladder helps, though. And that's only if I have upper body strength. Because it's right here. It's like on the one side. It's right here at my chest. And if you do it wrong, you'll pull the gutter off. So I decided to get the more expensive one just because Tuesday. Well, hey, I'm getting a tax credit for this too. So I get 30% tax credit, which is kind of cool. So I'll pay, it's about $5,000. 30% of that comes off whatever tax I owe at the end of the year because of that inflation bill that's not going to solve the inflation issue. Anyway, so that's all happened. And, it was really cool to watch that shared buy happen in our network. And I know that there will be a lot of other opportunities like that coming. There is some discussion of a shared buy of a pallet of mason jars. And because I brought it up, somebody's like, mason jars are cheap. You can get them at this location. And somebody's like, we don't have that there. I'm like, why don't y'all just go to Fillmore and order a pallet and share it? And I've had a few people ask me if I'm going to do that. The answer is no, I'm not going to do that. If one of you wants to coordinate that though, or lids, because I've done both jars and lids in the past, but it's just not happening this year. You coordinate it. I'll put people in touch with you. You can put it out on my networks. It's a great way to get canning supplies without just buying 12 jars at a time if you know you need more. I don't actually need lids or jars this year because I still have lots of them from the last time I bought cases of jar lids. I'll probably get a pallet next time I do jar lids. Jar lids only store so long though because they don't make them like they used to. And I have a lot of mason jars. Some of them are the narrow mouth, and I wish I had all wide mouth, but that's not how my world worked out after 2020 and I couldn't get wide mouth. So is what it is. And I'm using them and they're in the rotation. And that's part of the purpose of using mason jars to preserve my food that's canned, right? Is I get to reuse the jars. So I'm not going to need new jars. If I give you stuff with jars in it though, I really appreciate it when you give me my jar back. And then in the immediate holler neighbors, I got to take care of the Eversoul's dogs last weekend. They're super nice pit bull dogs. One of them moped the whole time. He threw the biggest dog pity party for himself because his favorite people were gone for one day. They left on a Saturday and came back not 24 hours later, probably 26 hours later. So they were gone for a single overnight. The one dog was like, oh, you're here. We got to hang out. And the other one was like, my people are gone. Yeah. So, but it was nice because they've done a lot to help with our animals when I'm out of town and Tactical's out of town. And that's been super helpful. So we got to give back a little bit to a holler neighbor and care for their animals. That said, I am looking for somebody who wants to house sit Saturday and Sunday of Self-Reliance Festival, 24th and 25th here, to take care of our animals. We have them covered Friday. I'm pretty sure we can get the Saturday morning chores done if we need to, but it would be better if somebody came a little later, like around 9 o'clock. And I am just looking for somebody who can, it's sheep and ducks and rabbits. Sheep, ducks, and rabbits and goats. And the dogs will be in their kennel location off site. So that's not an issue. And my cats need cat food. So it's not a super hard thing, but it's really nice to have somebody here in case there are problems. If there's a big problem, then Tactical will drive home and it takes him 3 hours to get there. And I have some other local people as resources if there's a quote unquote big problem, but let me know if you're interested in house sitting here. And it would be helpful if I know if you've house sat before or taken care of farm animals before, because it's very helpful if you have taken care of farm animals. There are pigs here right now too that don't really require much. Hopefully they will have moved out by that time. Next up, I talk about infrastructure. This is just about what we're building on the homestead, and we're getting ready for the coop build. We're building. Steve has gone over his plan a couple times here. I think I might schedule him for a webinar on the member portal for what the coop is, why we made those decisions, and just to go over the build in more detail. But that is happening soon. And then we're diving into, we have a great plucker, but it has had it was transported a lot early in its life, and some of the internals, like the connections, failed. So we ended up rewiring the whole inside of that thing last year. And Tactical is going to do a final pass through on that to make sure it's nice and ready for the chicken processing class. Next up is finances. This is where we talk about how much money we are making on the homestead, which is tons. We are making so much money on the homestead. No, we're not. But it does help with like, I don't really need to buy groceries except for milk because I like milk in my coffee. I actually would like heavy cream in my coffee, but I have to get that. So that's okay. And I will transition to heavy cream at some point. But I used to get goat's milk at a really cool place in Smithville called Harmony Lane. And if you are in the Smithville area, she has herd shares open, by the way. That's Harmony Lane in Smithville, Tennessee. I stopped drinking goat's milk. I stopped using it. I mean, I would like some for cheese this year, like maybe 3 to 6 gallons total. And I'm pretty sure I can source that from our network. And I've been on the road so much that like I used to get a gallon of milk a week, and I use I don't use a gallon of milk a week in my coffee. And I really like, as a result of going into this keto thing, I want heavy cream. Well, if you're getting goat's milk, you're not getting heavy cream. Let's put it that way. So I have moved back to cow's milk that I can strain the cream off of. But what I don't even want the milk. Like I want 6 to 12 gallons of cow's milk for cheese making. So I want 6 gallons of goat's milk for cheese making. I want 6 to 12 of cow's milk for cheese making a year. And that's it. We don't eat as much cheese as we used to. So it doesn't make sense for me to have a herd share anymore. But if you are a milk drinker, it does make sense for you to have the herd share. And goat's milk is delicious if you like. Of course, in Tennessee, the only way to have milk is raw milk, is to be a herd share owner. Anyway, that's the only food I need to buy every week is the additive to my coffee. And I could do without it if I wanted to. That's sort of a financial benefit on a homestead. I don't really need to go to the store to buy food unless I want a treat. A treat would be like macadamia nuts. I never buy meat at the store anymore. I just never buy it. I buy bacon for the spring workshop if I haven't made enough bacon, but I'm pretty sure we have enough homemade bacon for that this year. I'll double check that. And with Leo's doing the cooking, he makes bacon, and so I can have him make bacon. If in fact I need to do the bacon audit, so I know if Leo's is doing bacon for the spring workshop this year. He always brings some down anyway because he resells it. So it's really, I mean, that part's pretty cool. And then if I'm gonna, like, if I was gonna bake bread, I would buy flour, but I don't need to because I have wheat berries here that I can grind. We sold Tactical's grinder, but I have a Vitamix blender that in theory can make flour. I haven't tried it yet. I'll totally try it. If it doesn't work, I might get rid of my wheat berries. We'll see. So it's just like on the finance side, when we buy feed for animals, that's grocery expense, really. I think I'm going to restructure how the homestead finances work, though, and start buying the food we eat personally from the homestead business. That's something I need to talk to my CPA about. I'm just talking to y'all about that because we also sell meat and other things from here, and it goes through a business. And so like dividing what on the homestead is personal versus business, I've done, in like, it's been like this entire business unit is like coffee. Coffee is through Hollow Roast Coffee, and it's very clear. Some of those other things I want to clarify more and make sure we're doing it the best way for the homestead and for our financial future. And other than that, there haven't been major expenses the past 2 weeks. I have got to get all of my pet animals to the vet for their annual shoddy shots. So that's always fun because there's 4 cats and 2 dogs. And then usually Tactical's dog goes too. So it's 4 cats and 3 dogs. I have done that all in one day before, all in one appointment. I don't do that anymore. I just don't. It can be done. It takes 2 people and a lot of animal crates, but it's actually a lot easier to do sets of animals. So that's what I do now, is sets of animals. Anyway, that is the Homestead Happenings show for today. If you have questions, I have 2 starred for answering after this. If you have more, and I'm going to do the one question on using cardboard to prepare for planting. But if you have other questions, now's a good time to get them. Put those first few words in all caps Anyway, if you like the show and want to support the work we're doing here, you can do it in 2 ways. 1, get your coffee at hollowrose.com. 2, consider becoming a member. Just head on over to livingfreeintennessee.com to find out more. There is a free webinar on February 26th. If you want to sign up for that, it is the My 3 Things webinar. That's at livingfreeintennessee.com. It's an example of what the webinars are that you get as a member benefit. With that, guys, go out, make it a great week. All right, guys, welcome to the Q&A segment of today's show. I am adding Tactical so we can look up his nose, because looking up his nose is fun, but apparently he's organizing somewhere. I think he's in his cabin, but he's been, it's cold.
Still doing dishes.
You're doing dishes?
Yeah.
Okay. He's doing dishes in the cabin. That's super exciting stuff. Anyway, I had a couple questions come in, and I actually intended to talk about the egg conspiracy in the Homestead Happenings update. I'm going to start with that. I was at John Willis's last week, and my reaction to the feed is making chickens not lay eggs has been with skepticism, because everybody who claimed that did not have facts to back it up. And finally, somebody, I don't know who, I'm just trusting John Willis when he tells me this, somebody sent the feed off to a lab, had it analyzed, found it deficient in one micronutrient. And we're like, okay, it's deficient in this micronutrient. And I think they also did an experiment where they fed chickens different feed, and it was having an impact on eggs. And it was a Tractor Supply brand produced by Purina, and there are some recorded calls of the new, like, to Purina saying, is this really a thing? And I think at the core was that somebody says glyphosate. I don't know. So again, I'm telling you what I have heard somebody else say to me. This is not from a primary source, but John Willis is not somebody who's led me wrong on sources. And when I asked him who it was to connect me with that, he didn't answer, because sometimes when I text him, he doesn't answer because he's busy and then he forgets. I do know that Doug and Stacy, I can't remember their YouTube channel right now, actually have, they have played the recordings on their channel. So definitely go over and check it out. I'm just saying that because I think it is important to react to a report like that with skepticism, as I did. But I also think it's important, when it looks like it might be true, to come out and say, okay, I was skeptical and it might be true. Again, I haven't put a lot of effort into it because I don't use Tractor Supply feed. And I think the lesson from this is, if you are dependent on big brand commercial foods of any kind for your dogs, for your cats, for your birds, for your horses, think about what that source accesses. Like, we talk about opting out of the system and separating ourselves from Roundup and glyphosate and using better than beyond organic practices. If what you can do right now is raise chickens and feed them Tractor Supply feed, which is the most expensive feed you can feed them, but that is still better than the eggs you're getting in the store. Okay. Yeah, somebody says, I have not had problems and I use Tractor Supply food. I suspect it was in certain batches, Robin. I really do. I think, and I know that can happen. Because my dad was in commercial food. So I know that sometimes you will just have a batch that your source ingredient that went in, for whatever reason, had something different about it. You didn't know it until you started having problems. And that is what it is. But if what you can do is do that. Once you get that system going, though, start looking for ways to improve it. One of the easiest ways to improve, if you're raising poultry or rabbits or whatever else, is to start sourcing local sources for food. By local, I mean maybe in your state, within a few counties, within 150 miles if you can. Or look at other commercial brands that might be better. It's like the layers of an onion. Right? You just peel back one layer. First, you start with onion. Onion is, I have managed to raise my own backyard birds. I've learned how to do this. I'm feeding him the one feed I can find easily, which is Tractor Supply or whatever. And then, okay, I got that. My next layer is I'm going to improve the feed. My next layer after that is I'm going to figure out how to rotate them or build in, like the chicken tractor on steroid stuff. I'm going to source waste streams from restaurants and feed my chickens that, or put them on table scraps. My next layer is I'm going to figure out how to make my own feed. You can decide how deep into that onion you go that works for you. But until you start peeling back, you are dependent on whatever happens in the commercial system if you are using the commercial system. Here's a layer of that onion that I am still stuck with just the onion, and that is my meat birds I source from hatcheries. That is not ideal. That is not ideal. But that's what I do because that is better than the chicken I can buy at Walmart for 49 cents a pound or whatever it costs. I'm sure it costs more now because of inflation, right? So I just wanted to bring that up. The second thing is I had a question on YouTube in the comments about, because we talked about our end of day debrief, and we had we talked about, what did we talk about? I talked about my lasagna garden, that cardboard and blah, 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 about in the show I just did. And somebody said, hey, I have this sloped area where I plan to I think she's going to plant oregano or thyme or something. Should I have is it too late for me to put cardboard on that to beat back the weeds? I haven't beat them back because I was worried about erosion. And there's no good answer to that because I don't know how much of a slope, what region she's in, or he, I don't even know his gender, but she, for the purposes of this. I don't know what region she's in. I don't know what the winter's doing. I don't know what kind of soil she has. Like, I don't know what she is trying to, if it's grass or brushy grass or something else. Because I don't know all that, it's really hard for me to give a recommendation, but I can say this. We have used cardboard on slopes and tarps to beat stuff back in advance of planting. And if you do that and then don't plant anything in it and you get a lot of rain, there will be erosion. There just will be. Also, if you take the sod layer off on a slope and don't plant something in it, there will be erosion. Ways you can mitigate erosion is by mulching it in or by using those like straw. But on a slope, if you put stuff, if you remove what's holding the soil and don't have something else holding the soil, there will be some erosion. So just keep that in mind. So the answer is yes, you can use cardboard on a slope to beat stuff back and then put your plants in. And you probably won't have too much erosion unless you have the scale of rain event we had yesterday here in Tennessee. So that's like, I know that's a risk in the spring here. And I don't know, how many inches of rain do you think we had, Tactical? Any idea how much fell? I know that school is closed for flooding today.
A lot.
Okay, so we don't know. I don't have a rain gauge here because every time I put a rain gauge out, I forget it's out and then it goes below freezing and then it cracks. And so then I have a rain gauge that doesn't gauge rain. So I just stopped. I need one that like automatically dumps it. So it's 32 degrees. I don't know.
We got enough rain last night in a short enough period of time that it materialized a cinder block in the wash.
Yeah. Oh, the
like
tap
I
came
have
out.
no idea where it came from, but it washed it out of somewhere.
Washed what out?
A cinder block. Like literally, there was a cinder block buried in the ground somewhere. It's no longer buried in the ground.
One of the interesting things about the Holler Homestead, guys, is that it yields stuff that has been, so a lot of stuff was thrown around here, forgotten about, underbrush grew over it. And one of the things there was a lot of here were cinder blocks when I first got here, just random cinder blocks everywhere. And so that just means that cinder block was probably so buried that we never found it. And then it got unburied yesterday. There's this giant metal hook in my carport right now. And I was like, I see there's an interesting metal hook I've never seen before. And by giant, I mean like I'm holding my arms up. It's like big. Where'd that come from? And Tactile's like, well, I saw this, like it has a little loop on one end. So like you could hang the hook. Like it'd probably be pretty good for holding a pig up if you were processing a pig. Although I prefer the gambrel I have. And Tactical's like, well, I saw this little metal loop sticking up out of the soil. I tried to pull it, it wouldn't come. And then I ended up digging and I kept digging. And eventually I ended up with this giant metal hook. And there it is. And I'm like, what are we doing with the metal hook? It's like, I was thinking of using it for welding material. I was like, okay, that probably needs to go in the welding material thing. Pack Rat says Mike Adams, the health ranger, apparently did the tests. So that's helpful to know if you want to just run down the source material. I'm not going to do it, guys. I'm not putting the time in right now, but I wanted to talk to you about that process. Anyway, so why was I talking about the metal hook? Oh yeah, cinder block. So yeah, so it's just when we get rain of that scale. So back to the will you erode thing. And if you're in an area that's at risk for that, you want to have a strategy for not having all that erosion in the area. On the other hand, it does not take long for oregano and thyme and some other ground covers to take over if you want to change things over. And you can buy a sod cutter if you just need to cut the top layer off. But I totally have used cardboard on slopes before or tarps and had it actually work when it wasn't privet, and then replanted other herbs, and it did. There was a little erosion when it rained a lot, but it was fine. So it's all about establishing your next layer of plants that are keeping the erosion from happening. So if you're going to time that, I think having cardboard on it for 6 months without moving it, bad idea if you're at risk for large rain events. If you're going to time it and use it to kind of beat back, or like this time of year, it's more like keep stuff from growing. That can be used as a tool successfully. It's going to be specific to your location though. And I have 2 more questions. If we don't get a bunch of questions in the comments, guys, we're going to end this. Tactical, tell us, before we do that, tell us, how's the week going? And did you get a lot done?
Yeah, it's been a lot of small miscellaneous stuff with 5 minutes here, wait 12 hours, and then do another 10 minutes on something. So I've got the one 4-wheeler is put back together again. So I now have a pretty reliable 4-wheeler that in theory shouldn't break anything for years to come. And then I just got the correct parts for my truck. So in theory tonight, I might be able to finish bolting the rear axle back to the truck. So hopefully, once I get that done, it'll be another decade or so before I have any serious problems with that truck.
I'm skeptical.
So, I'm not.
I'm skeptical of the 4-wheeler.
I mean, it's solid. I replaced like almost every bearing and seal on the drivetrain of that 4-wheeler, completely new brakes. And the electrical system on that one is actually in good shape as opposed to the other one.
Yeah, I'm always skeptical because the 4-wheeler seems like it's broken every other day. August 21, rain event unearthed metal rims, etc., from a buckboard in my brother-in-law's property, probably buried 100 years. Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff like that here. I have no idea what that hook was for. Okay, Andrea says, will there be virtual ticket option for SRF? My husband and I are going to your spring workshop and can't do both. The answer is yes. The first week of March, the digital pass will launch. I'm still putting together technology on that. And I found somebody to MC it. So it will be a little different than it's been in the past. So it's going to be live streams from the main stage. We may get some recordings in there from the other stage, but we don't have near the capacity we had last time. So I'm just prioritizing it that way. And then I have somebody MCing it for the first time. So we'll see how that works for her. But it'll be interesting. So we've got Louise, who you'll hear from in a couple weeks on my podcast. You'll get to know her, and that's the thing. And then so Dark Sky Homestead says safe, just like aspirin, right? So yeah, things that are deemed safe are safe, and there's a lot of controversy about if aspirin is safe or not. It can really hurt your stomach if you have it all the time. Although aspirin is one of the few pain medications I take when I take a pain medication. I prefer the willow bark, which is what it comes from. But I use aspirin before I use acetaminophen, and I'm allergic to ibuprofen and Vicodin and all of those other things that they bribe the people. So it does work, like if I need it. But most of the time I just stay away from painkillers and try to deal with the root cause. Storing jars has gotten difficult since they don't ship them in boxes anymore. Instead, low thin trays with shrink. How do you manage that? Pack Rat, the way I store, so I have 2 ways I store jars, and we're actually in the middle of we are about to change where jars are stored. So I have typically had them in the prepper pantry and outdoor kitchen area, just because I can in the outdoor kitchen so the heat doesn't go into my house, which is great. And they do come, like when I buy them by the case, they come in it's not a big box. You can buy boxes for storage from Uline, by the way. So you could decide I want to store them in boxes, get all your boxes, they're cardboard, and that you can stack those boxes super easy. But where I store my canned goods is in a couple of places. And when the jars are empty, I put them back where they were full. And that's what I do first. Now, because I have started canning a lot more than I was. I also have cases of canned goods under my bed and some other places for storage. And then I put the empty jars back in those cases under the bed. What we are moving to, though, is some shelves down the hill in the workshop. I really only need 2 to 3 cases of jars up here at any one time. And I want the space for storing other things. So I'm going to be moving the bulk of the empty jars to shelves that are dedicated to empty jars. And then during canning season, on the day I'm going to can, I will go down and I will get, if I don't have them up here, I will get cases of jars from down there. However, I will still put the empty jars back where I store full jars and use those first. And so we're in the middle of incremental improvements on my home. Most of my resource and energy has gone into food production and other systems outside and event infrastructure outside over the last decade. And my house has been neglected. So there's like a big kitchen update happening. It will result in more storage in my kitchen. There is the mudroom's going to get messed with. There may be an addition put on in the next 5 years that results in an extra bedroom, because my house is listed as a 3-bedroom, but it's a 2-bedroom, really. And that means that I can add a bedroom, and that doesn't even mess up my whole, all the stuff registered with the people who register such things. And that will give me the ability to have my studio separate from living space, which is a goal. But I want it in the house. I don't want like a building outside that I have to go to, because if I have that, then I won't go to it. I already know that. So with those improvements, that will change how canned goods are stored here, because right now they're stored everywhere I could think of creatively to store canned goods. And so there's, some in my bedroom, some in the living room, some in the kitchen, some in the pantry, the prepper pantry, and some in the mudroom, and some under my bed. There aren't any in the closets at this time, but I used to put them in closets. Like there's all these places that they end up. And I do have a way to keep track of that, but I'm really looking forward to just having one shelving system with stupid canned goods at the approximate rate that I cycle through canned goods every year. So those are my strategies for storage. I do not store canned goods with stuff in it stacked on each other. So if I'm going to have, like a tower of canned goods that have things in them, I don't want the jars sitting on the lids of the canned goods of things in them, because that could break the seal and then that ruins it. And the boxes that they ship in don't come up over the top. So if I needed to be able to stack them, I would either buy boxes that allow you to stack them without weight on the jars, or I would put shelving systems in somewhere, or I would figure out how not to do that. So there are lots of creative ways I've talked about in my pantry training webinars for storage, including like the back of cabinets in your kitchen, and then you have the stuff you use in front of them. I've had friends cut into their drywall and make recessed storage. I've had people with long hallways build 1 jar depth of shelving, floor to ceiling, for for jar storage. So there are lots of creative ways you can find to store them. They make the racks that you slide them in, like a bar puts their like stemware, right? Only it comes below, not the lid, but it comes below the lip of the jar, and you can slide those in. So many ways to store jars. What you have to do is assess your current situation and decide what works best for me from a maintaining it standpoint, keeping track, and for the storage space I have, because everybody's pantry or pantry system, especially if you're using mason jars, it's going to be a little bit different. What works best for you? There's no one answer. It depends on like how many square feet do you have, what are the temperature swings, and what are you going to manage as a household? Those are all questions you need to answer and make your own customized pantry plan. So hopefully that helps. I do not have any other questions queued up. So guys, thanks for joining the live stream today. We will see you next week. And don't forget, Sunday, I think it's at 3 Central, but it might be at 4. We're doing a live radio show for 4 hours with Toolman Tim. It's going to be streaming on the Living in Tennessee YouTube channel and the workshop, Toolman Tim's workshop channel. Don't forget to join in. We have a lot of great content creators, including Paul Wheaton, Jack Spirko, and I mean a whole bunch more. So it's going to be, I think John Pugliano is going to be on. So you'll hear a lot of different things. It's going to be a big round robin. It's like the old days when you listen to the radio and lots of different things got talked about. That's what it's going to be like. Check that out this Sunday.